All right, so today we're going to do some review, just proving congruencies for these triangles. And so the first one we're going to talk about is side, side, side. So if we have triangle ABC and DEF, if we're talking about side, 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 AB needs to be congruent to DF, or DE, and BC needs to be congruent to EF, and AC needs to be congruent to DF. Okay, so that's side, side, side. Okay, so now let's talk about side, angle, side. So again, if we have triangles ABC and DEF, and we're talking about side, angle, side, I'm just going to start with side AB, and if I'm talking with AB, I'm going to say that that's congruent to DE. And we also want to know that this angle included is congruent, and then our last side, which can be BC and EF. So we know that if we have side, angle, side, then those triangles are congruent. Okay, let's talk about angle, side, angle. So if we have triangles ABC and DEF, again, we want angle, side, angle. So we want the side to be included here, so I'm going to say that angle A is congruent to angle D, and AB is congruent to DE, and angle B is congruent to angle E. And I'm just now realizing that that's a little bit hard to see, but hopefully you get the point on that one. Now if we were to do angle, angle, side, we have our triangle ABC again, and DEF. Now we want angle, angle, side, so I'm going to say that angle A is congruent to angle D, and angle B is congruent to angle E, and now we need a side opposite them. So not this included side here, but another side. So BC and EF are congruent to prove with a angle, angle, side. Okay, let me choose another color here. Now our last one here that we talked about is hypotenuse leg. So the hypotenuse and any one leg of a right triangle. So the key thing here is the triangle has to be right. So if the hypotenuse were the same on triangle ABC and DEF, and one of the legs needs to be congruent as well. So BC and EF are congruent. Those are the hypotenuse for both triangles, and AC is congruent to DF. Those are the legs. So now this piece is going to help you a lot when we start talking about proofs. And so this is just a list that we created for reasons your sides could be congruent. So 1, it's given to you, easy enough, or it's the definition of a midpoint. The midpoint will create two congruent sides. So if you are given that something is a midpoint, it gives you two congruent sides, okay? And then reflexive property is the third one here, and so a side is just congruent to itself. We've seen that a lot in our proofs where the triangles are kind of connected. So obviously that side is congruent to itself. Okay, and then we also wanted to talk about a couple reasons why your angles are congruent as well. Here again, we can have that your angles are congruent because it's given to you, or they're vertical angles. I feel like this is one of the biggest ones that is forgotten about. When you have vertical angles, remember that you have congruent angles across from each other, and then we can also have alternate interior angles, alternate exterior angles, and corresponding angles. But remember, the big thing here is you have to have parallel lines to have one of those three reasonings. And then our last one is definition of an angle bisector. So a bisector creates two congruent angles. So now let's talk about these two things down here. So angle, angle, angle. So if we were given triangle ABC and DEF, and we were just given that all of these angles were congruent to each other, then we still don't really know if these two triangles are congruent, because those side lengths could be any side length that we want. They would have to be proportional to each other, sure, but they do not have to be the same side length. If we're only given that all three angles are congruent, then we don't know anything about the side lengths. And now vice versa, if we were given side, 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 obviously we know that side, side, side gives us all angles on the inside are congruent. And then we also have angle, side, side, or side, side, angle. So if we were given triangle, here, let me change my color really quick. I'm going to do this darker yellow. So if we're given triangle ABC and DEF, so if we're given these two triangles and we want to show angle side side, then we can have angle A is congruent to angle D, and AB is congruent to DE, and BC is congruent to DF. This also does not work because we don't know anything about that third side length or the other two angles. So maybe two angles could be the same, but we don't really have enough information to know for sure. So if you were ever given just angle, 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 or side, side, angle, or angle, angle, side, those are the same thing. If you're ever given those, we don't really know anything about those triangles, and we can't really say that they're congruent. So we want to stick to side, 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 angle, side, angle, side, angle, 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 side, and hypotenuse leg.